Hey there, Aries. How you doing? So this is a forecast taking you from the full moon in Libra right the way through to the new moon in Taurus on the 27th of April. So that's 2 weeks. Do you know what? So much is happening in this 2 weeks that I can hardly believe that 2 weeks is passing. We've got this full waning moon phase. Anyway, I'm going to be pacing you through the planetary weather, what's going on, what's likely to affect you as an Aries. And by the way, what I mean by Aries is, if you've got Aries sun, or if you've got Aries ascendant or rising sign, this will be really helpful for you in terms of understanding where you might want to put your energy and how you might want to spend your time. So if you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa Tanner. Louisa Tanner Munson. Welcome. Feel Good Astrology is my baby. The way I practice astrology is to try to create resources that feel like there's a bit of freedom, a little bit of space to move. My own observations of astrology in my past when I was growing up and learning about it was that it could be really fatalistic and say, oh, if you've got this here, this means. And, I think we can have choice. I think we can see what's coming up, but, create strategies and plan using the astrological energy. So that's what my offering here is about. Anyway, if you've been here before, thanks for coming back. Really appreciate that. Let's have a look now at some of the energies that are arising and see how they might be affecting you. So I've got my trusty forecast, my slides coming up. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of pace you through what's going on over this next 2-week period. So it's a full moon that the full moon on the 13th, full moon in Libra. It's very spicy full moon, I have to say. Lots of big patterns going on there, but our patterns are illuminated. It's really hard to avoid them. Like the energies that you've been playing with in life recently, they seem to come to bear at this time. So if you haven't been tidying up loose ends, everything seems to go a little bit supersized around the time of the full moon. Thereafter, we start to pull our emotions back in. We try to tidy up the space. And for the first week of this 2-week period, we're doing it very consciously in the illumination of the moon. There is still a lot of brightness, but it is reducing every day as the moon is appearing to get smaller and smaller. Then halfway through, at the time of the third quarter, it's time to start letting go more unconsciously. And that's the time when we start to come into acceptance about what's going on in life, and we start to trust that life might know better, and we create space for sowing new seeds. And so this last week, we tend to be going a lot more deeper inside and resting a lot more and getting ready for a whole new moon cycle that starts on the new moon, in particular, this time, the new moon in Taurus. So that's what it's looking like technically. But if we have a look at it as a diary, here's how it's laid out. So we've got the full moon in Libra on the 13th. The 27th, 2 weeks after, we've got the new moon in Taurus. I always find it much easier to sort of visualize it for me. The third quarter moon phase starts on the 21st. That's on Monday. And you can see here that there's a lot of stuff going on in this first week. And in the second week, it's a bit quieter. So it's interesting, the quieter week just happens to also be the week where we're more unconscious. And the first week, there's a lot of energetic changes. And about that, I really want to bring up the idea that, on the 13th of April, Venus is going direct. This is great because since the 26th of November last year, we had Mercury retrograde. Then we had Mars going retrograde that took us through to the 23rd of February, when all of a sudden there was a little gap. And then on the 2nd of March, Venus went retrograde, followed by Mercury. And right now, as of the full moon in Libra, Venus, Mercury, and Mars are all direct. Now, this is important because these personal planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, they are teaching us things at a real internal level. They're really affecting us at a personality level, so we get to see what games we're playing in terms of our communications, our feelings, how we relate to people, and also our sense of vitality. What patterns are we playing? What patterns have we had to wind back a little bit and investigate. So there's a lot of intensity that's been going on since the end of November, and it's just clearing as this full moon in Libra is coming on. Obviously, we did have a tiny break, but it was so small, blink and you'd miss it. So that's one of the big things. Following on from that, we've got a lovely conjunction between Saturn and the North Node, really emphasizing that it's time to tie up loose ends, really seriously tie up loose ends and take some big major league responsibility for things that we've let slide, even things that we're a bit afraid of. It's really important to get things set up and organized. I think, it's important to give a bit of deference to Saturn and the North Node. They really mean business. So don't mess around with them, As we're going through this week, Mercury, which has been in the sign of Pisces, it's not happy in the sign of Pisces. It's a water sign. It's confusing. It's kind of baggy, loose thinking. Mercury moves into the sign of Aries, and it really feels like things are moving forwards. Our thinking gets clearer, brighter, more intelligent. Obviously, this is your sign, so your thinking is just going to just come up a notch or two. You'll be feeling a lot better in yourself. You'll be able to articulate things a lot more. Straight after that, Mercury makes a conjunction to Neptune, which is really helping you to get some of your spiritual ideas out, your creativity out. Really beneficial. This is the first one happening in Aries together. It's a whole new start of a pattern. Then the next day, on the 18th, Mars goes into Leo. That's also really helpful because Mars is your ruling planet and he's moving into a fire sign. So it feels like Mercury in Aries in your sign and Mars, your ruler, in a fire sign. Both of these are moving on, really helping you feel a lot more playful, a lot more energetic, a lot more direct, your favorite way of being, in fact. And then it's followed by the Sun in Taurus. So again, the sun is moving on. The sun is coming into the second house. It feels like you're able to consider the scope of your personality, the scope of your image, and what that might mean in terms of your earnings and your value. Like, what is your mission and how are you rewarded for that? So you're coming into a time of receivership. And I always think that follows getting to know yourself. So this is a nice time of the year for you. And then just before the third quarter, Venus makes a conjunction with the North Node. And, it's a time for us to really kind of dream deep into our purpose. And there's 3 beautiful sextiles, including Uranus, which is speeding things up. These are the building blocks of our dreams. So there's a real feeling that we are able to make some changes. And then in this second week, things start to get a bit more serious. Now, I haven't mentioned the Pluto and Mars opposition yet, or the fact that it makes a T-square during this whole 2-week period with the Sun. But on the 21st, the Sun makes an exact square with Mars, and that is really creating some tension between your desire to sort of express yourself and then your desire to take action. They're slightly at odds. I mean, they sound like they're going in the same direction, and yet one's moving a lot faster than the other. One is really cautious, the other is like charge. And so it's like this sort of internal frustration. They're going in slightly different speeds and slightly different directions. And then on the 23rd, the Sun makes a square to Pluto. And so you're wanting to express yourself, and yet you feel like you're being controlled by something. And then, the question is, well, how do I reclaim my control? So there's a feeling of irritation, this feeling of uncertainty that something is looming in the background. And we have Venus in a conjunction with Saturn, which I think is a balm. It's kind of calming the energy, which is nice. But then on the 27th, when we got the new moon in Taurus, Mars and Pluto go into a full opposition. Now, I'm going to show you all of this in a second with the charts. But just before I do that, I just want to say thank you to everybody who supports this channel. There are many ways to support the channel and to support me. I really love that some of you buy me a coffee, and some of you are clients, and some of you are people who support my channel by investing in membership. So, thank you very much. You've really made a difference. And I couldn't really do this without you. You really keep me going. So thank you so much. Let's have a look at those charts. So I've drawn up 3 charts. This is the one for the full moon in Libra. Then this is the one for the 3rd quarter moon. And then the final one is the new moon in Taurus. Now, if I just go back, keep an eye on Mars, the moon. So there's the moon at the time of the full moon. And then the moon comes here at the 3rd quarter. And then here at the time of the new moon. What you'll see here's Pluto and here's Mars. This is their opposition that's coming in. The sun and the moon are involved with the Pluto and Mars configuration at the full moon, the 3rd quarter moon, and also the new moon. So it's like the sun and the moon, like dark and light, yin and yang, masculine and feminine, and then Pluto and Mars, which is the inner tension between wanting to control your environment so you survive, like this real strong feeling, I must survive, versus Mars, which is, less aggressive and controlling, but more, I'm going to take action for myself. There's this feeling of being held back because of some kind of control mechanism. So there's a lot of things playing into the energies right now. And of course, Mars is your ruling planet, and Mars is involved in all of these. The thing I want you to know is, Mars has been in this opposition since the end of October. So it went into an exact opposition with Pluto on the 3rd of November, then another exact opposition with Pluto on the 3rd of January, and then it's going into its final opposition on the 27th of April. Thereafter, it's easing off. And so that tension is going to disappear. So, at the start when I said, we haven't felt really relaxed because we've had these personal retrogrades going on since the end of November. Well, we've also had this Pluto and Mars opposition since, November time up until now. So there's a couple of patterns that are being broken down at this time. So this is the thing I'm really excited about. I think whatever has been holding you back, you're going to get to the bottom of. And I think you're going to be able to make some really dynamic changes. And come the time of the new moon, which is here, I really think you'll know how to move forwards in a way that's compelling and feels good. So a few things I want to mention then. So the thing that really strikes me the most is Mars, your ruling planet. When he moves forwards into the sign of Leo, he's really emphasizing your need to enjoy life and to live life large and to really focus on what lifts you up, what creates joy. What are you creating from that place of your truth? Now, that could be your kids. A Mars coming into this area, if you've got kids, can show where your kids might get a little bit aggressive or a little bit narky, a little bit irritable. Maybe they're growing up and going into a funny phase. They might be more physical. They might need a bit more physical energy. But, from a loving perspective, love bubbles up in this place. So new dates and things like that can come up. And this is quite sexual. But, is there something physical or challenging or competitive that you can do that lifts you up, that brings joy to you, that makes you feel really good? Because Mars coming into this area really wants to be used, really wants to be expressed, really wants to be felt. So it's worth asking yourself that. Mars is making some great connections to Venus and Saturn. Venus and Saturn are sort of hanging around this whole time. They come together on the 24th, but they're right at the end of the story, the zodiac story for you. And to my mind, what this is suggesting is that there is a calming solution that is arising in your unconscious mind. It's almost as if you're trying to soothe your vagus nerve or vagal nerve. Sorry, vagus nerve, like you go to Las Vegas. Sorry. It's like you're calming down your fight or flight systems. Anything that is getting aggravated, irritated, inflamed. To me, Venus and Saturn coming together is like a balm. It's It's soothing the way. It's taking responsibility. It's using a bit of discipline. It's using some foresight, but it's also using love and compassion. So I do think anything that is coming up in your unconscious mind, anything where you felt a little bit trapped, not able to fully express yourself. If you're feeling exhausted, from last year and you're really wondering what your next step is, I think Venus and Mars are quite helpful here. They can help you sort of meditate into the energies of it, but they are working with Mars. So you could really use your inner mind in a constructive way. The North Node in this area as well, I think, is really tuning you into your dreams and asking you to go deeper into your dreams. Now, this waning moon phase really suits meditation. It really suits journaling, retreat work, shamanic work. It really helps you to tune into something. Very soon, Saturn is going to come over into the sign of Aries. Very soon, Venus is going to come into the sign of Aries. May is really going to start to change that. And then there's not going to be anything in this really sort of reflective place other than the North Node. What this is saying to me is there's a lot to process. And yet very soon things are going to pick up speed and you're going to look over your shoulder and think, where did all that go? I'm on a completely different path right now. I'm moving forwards. So there's a lot of new direction coming up for you. So I think, if in this next couple of weeks you're feeling like you want to restore yourself a little bit, now would be a really good time to be uncustomarily not an Aries. I don't even know if I said that right, but almost like, be more reflective, be more inner, be more dreamlike, almost take it to a whole new level, like take it beyond where you're comfortable, because very soon you won't need to do this. Very soon you're going to be really in your body, really in that sense of knowing who you are and where you're going and your personality. And it's going to feel like nothing's holding you back. The last thing that I really want to bring to your mind is this new moon in Taurus. It's coming up in your second house. Yes, it's been challenged by Pluto and it's been challenged by Mars, your ruling planet, but it's still giving you this new sense of who you are and this new sense of money. The second house is very much about our resources and maybe how we use those. So there is this feeling that whatever you're working on right now is going to clear the path for a new way to express yourself that can be a lot more affluent, a lot more beneficial to you, and can actually fund your next development, your next adventure. Now, I look at these forecasts and also do love forecasts. I take it a lot deeper. And I also look at a career and ambition forecast. And if that's of interest to you, then I suggest checking out school.com/feelgoodastrology. As part of my membership, it's $22 a month with 1 week's free trial. You get a fortnightly relationship and connections forecast where I really talk about all these patterns, but just from the perspective of your love and how you can bring it in and how it might affect your family and your friends and stuff. I also do a fortnightly career and ambition forecast too, literally talking about how you can use all of that to bring in more money, to focus your attention at the right times and in the right ways. So that's every time there's a new moon, you get one of these each. And then every time there's a full moon, there's another release. Now, you don't just get the ones for Aries, you get them for all signs. So what this means is you can check out your partner's ascendant sign or their sun sign. In fact, if this is your sun sign, you can check out your ascendant sign. So if that's Sagittarius, for instance, that would be there for you to listen to. There's also a complimentary hangout once a month, so if you're learning astrology or you want to hang out with other people that like astrology, it's a cool place to come to. Had a hangout last night and it was really cool. If you're thinking about having a consultation or joining a course or a webinar, then there's discounts if you're a member. But really, you're helping to support my channel. And if that feels good to you, then please do check it out. Like I say, there's a 1 week's free trial. And you might find that, yeah, you might find that it feels good. It feels good. So anyway, I'm going to leave that there for you, Aries. Take care of yourself. Have a great 2-week period and catch you another time. Lots of love. Bye for now.